Okay, so good day. So in this video we will be discussing the first installment for your unit 2 and unit 3. So first is this video will cover unit 2, which we will be talking about time value of money and the compound amount. So before we go there, a little bit of review lang muna, no? Again, interest, diba, is the cost of using money, but it can be seen in two different perspectives. The first one would be um, in the perspective of the lender, so katong nagpautang or creditor. So it is an income or a gain on his part. So this one, it is an income or a gain on his part. While on the what do you call this one? While on the side of the borrower or the debtor, it's a cost or an expense on his part. So the reason why we pay the reason why the borrower pays the creditor or the lender interest is that what he's paying is the opportunity cost that the lender has lost because he lent the money to the borrower. Kaya di ba kung nakikwarta, um, you could have opportunities of investing it somewhere and growing your money somewhere else. But since imo man siyang gipahulam, so katong nang hulam sa imo should pay that opportunity cost in a way. So that's your interest for you. Again, on the part of the lender, it's a gain or a revenue, while on the part of the debtor or the borrower, it's a cost or an expense. So um, it can be interpreted as compensation on the part of the creditor, while it is the price of using money or the cost of using money on the part of the borrower. So there are two factors affecting ano no uh interest on this part. So we have the rate and the time. So when you say the rate, no, the interest rate, if the higher the interest rate, of course, the higher will be the interest that you will be paying, and also the higher the future value. The future value here would be our maturity value. If you can recall sa atong chapter 1, maturity value is the principal plus the interest on the part of simple interest, diba? So the higher the interest rate, the higher the future value, the lower the interest rate, the lower the future value. On the part naman of time, no, so the longer the period, the more interest is earned. So, kung the more interest is earned, the more po the future value. What do you call this one? The shorter the time, then the lesser the interest po niya mong makuha. So let's take for example, no, there is if you can see here on your right side, so principal, rate, and time. So assuming we have a principal of 100 and then an interest rate of 9%, and then the time here is 1. So the maturity value or the future value would simply be 100 times 1 plus the rate and the time. So you will have 109 pesos. So um, assuming, no, let's assume muna nga they have the same time, but different rates, higher nga interest rate. So 100 times 0.01 times so 100 times 1 plus 0.1 or 0.10 times the time of 1. So you'll get 110. So as you can see here, guys, no, the higher the interest rate with the same time period and the same principal, the higher the maturity value or the future value. So your interest here, so let's just say interest. So your interest here would be this one, the principal times the rate times the time. If I can just transfer it here. Okay, my face is obscuring the ano. Okay. So ayun. So as you can see, the higher the rate, so from 0.09 to 0.10, the higher the interest. Or the lower the rate, from 0.10 to 0.9, the lower the interest. Same goes with the maturity value. The higher the rate, the higher the maturity value. The lower the rate, the lower the maturity value. Now, let's assume figures, no, na constant ang ato ang price and rate, but the time would differ. So, for example, say 100 100. Let's assume that our rate is at 9%, so 0.09, 0.09, and our time here is 1 year and 6 months. So 6 months is 6 over 12 or zero point 0.5. Oh my god. 6 over 12. So let's just put this in the center. So 6 over 12. Now, your interest here would be on the first case, so 100 times 0.09 times 1, your interest would be 9, while on the other hand, your interest would be 100 times 0.09 times 6 over 12, that's just 4.5. And your maturity value would then be 109 for the first one and 104.5 for the second one. So as you can see here, guys, no, the longer the time period, the higher the interest, the higher the future value. While the shorter the time period, the lesser the interest and the lesser the maturity value. So there are also basic concepts, no, underlying. Wait lang ha, murag ma-move na siya. Just move it muna. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so there are also concepts. When you say pod, what is the concept the I of time value, no? So the concept of time value is governed by this one. Katong lagi the concept of interest is affected by rate and time. While the concept of time value is governed by this one. So time value of money. So muna siya ang four basic premises nga nag-govern sa time value of money, no? A present value is always less than a future amount. So, what do we mean by this? So, diba, in your simple interest formula, your present value is the money that you have now. So, that's your principal value or that's your principal value, diba? And your future value would be your maturity value. So, since interest accrues or since naa kay interest nga ka-earn or naa kay interest nga ginabayaran, present value will always be less than the future amount. Now, the second one would be the reverse of this one. So, a future amount is always greater than a present value. So, it's just a reversal of the first statement. So, if the present value is always less than the future amount, then the future amount is always greater than the present value. So, naraman day siya diri, no? Naraday siya. Okay. And then the third and the fourth, I thought I skipped this one. I skipped this one. Okay. So anyhow, so the third one would be the peso of today is greater than the peso of tomorrow. What do you mean by that? Kung nakay piso karon o kinsa mas dako ang piso karon or ang piso by next month? Now, ang mas dako ana would be the piso of today. Nganuman, by next month, maka-earn na to yung piso today og interest. While ang piso next month, wala pa siya na earn nga interest, di ba? So, that would mean na ang piso nimo karon would always be greater than the piso of tomorrow. On the other hand, baliktad na po siya sa third statement, no? So, ang piso in 1 month would always be less than sa piso today. Because ang piso today, again, will earn interest na. So, piso lang ka next month, pero ang piso karon pagka next month, lahi na siya, naka-earn na siya ang interest. Okay? So, dili na din siya mo gawas ang concepts of present value and future value, no? So, as what I have said kanina, no? Present value can be interpreted as your principal, so that's your P, while your future value or maturity value can be interpreted as your P plus I or principal plus interest. So, ako lang siyang tanggalon, no? So again, to explain the third one, Um, to explain the third one, no? Um, so, muna siya ang iyang concept. So, at year zero, at year, comparing year zero and year one, no? So, um, peso, peso of year zero, and then peso of year one. Okay, peso of year one. So, if you look at this table, guys, no? So, at year zero, since lang kay peso of year zero, na kay piso. Pero, wala pa kay value diri sa imong year zero on, sa imong piso on um, year 1 kay wala pa man kaato pagka end of the year 1 pa man kanay piso, so pagka end of year 1 na nakay piso dayon. So in this case, no, it will be kanang shown na ang piso at year 0 and ang piso at year 1, in comparing the two values, mas dako yun si piso at year 0 or piso of today sa piso of tomorrow. Kaya again, si piso of yesterday, naka-earn, si peso of today will earn interest, while si peso of tomorrow, wala pa siya na-earn nga interest. So, these concepts, guys, no, of present value and future value does not stick with nga pag present value diretso principal, pag future value diretso nga maturity value. Your present value, your future value will become somehow later on as your present value. In in what case man siya maingana? So, 'di ba? Ibang una-una 'di ba, kung nakay piso last year, i-compare nimo sa piso karon, kinsa man imong ay sige, karon na lang, karon then pagka next month. So, nakay piso karon, tas so by 1 month maka-earn siya og 10 centavos. So in 1 month, kato akong piso nga present value, yung future value ato would be 1.10, which is 1 nga principal plus the interest of 0.10. Now, hunahunaan dayon nga or imagine na nga nalilabay na ang 1 month. So pag abot ato nga adlaw, no, nga katong naka-earn na siya og 1.10 ato nga day, my future value will now become my present value because at present my money is at 1.10. So again, no, your future value will become a present value when that date nga imong gina-think na future value to siya will arrive. So by the lapse of time, no, present value will become future value. For example, ragod guys, no, kung maghunahon na ka ugma, 'di ba? Ugma is future. Pero pag umuabot na si ugma, that will become your present. So muna siya ang kanang concept nga how future value becomes a present value when that particular time will arrive. Okay? So next. So we have to talk about the difference between simple interest and compound interest. So I have already introduced this concept to you sa inyong first chapter. When we talk about simple interest, ang iyang interest or the interest is only calculated once. So meaning, ang manganak lang is ang principal or ang nanay or ang tatay, di ba? And then, when we talk naman of compound interest, ang anak manganak. So, the concept of compound interest here is that ang interest na iyahang gina-earn is gina-reinvest siya. So, dili siya ginakuha. So, ang mahitabo na principal, so, nag-anak siya. After 1 year, imo to siyang iisa. So, katong naisa nga amount, muna po din to ang mga anak. So, muna siya nga kanang when it comes to kung atong ikuan, no, kung ato siyang i-represent into formula, ang imuhang future value sa simple interest would be siya si simple interest would simply be PRT PRT. Alam na siya. Well, si compound interest, mao ra gyapon PRT. Pero pagka next year, once nga silbi or pagka next nga period, once nga mga anak na po na siya, i-combine man nimo ni. So mahimo siyang P plus PRT times um times RT. So meaning ang combined, kadi ba kani imuhang PRT is your interest or in a way pwede na siya ma-represent is ano P P plus I times RT. Kaya diba, ang na-combine nga amount ni principal o ni interest, muna po din to siya ang imong compute ng interest. So, si anak na ang apil na og panganak. So, that's the difference between simple interest and compound interest. So, again, no, simple interest, your calculation of interest only happens once. But when it comes to compound interest, the calculation of interest occurs every period. So when you talk about period, it could be monthly, weekly, so kada week siya manganak, or kada month siya manganak, But when it comes to simple interest, the period there is only one. Isa ra gyud ka mag-compute. Okay? So, and talking about compound interest, there are things that we need to be familiar with before we can go to the formula. So here, compound interest. So A here will represent our compound amount or principal plus compound interest. Not just simple interest. Okay, when we say principal plus compound interest, nana po dito ang interest sa principal o interest sa mga anak. Okay, now present value will represent, P here will represent your present value or the value at the beginning of a period. It could be your principal. Okay, so the value at the beginning of a period. So that's your present value at a particular period. So kung kinsa imong focus na period na karon, so that's your present value. Okay, I here is the interest rate per period. So unsa man ang difference between the simple interest rate and the interest rate per period. So an interest rate will be given to you, di ba? As what I have told you in your unit 1, interest is expressed annually. Okay, so interest is expressed annually. So your annual rate is what you call your coupon rate, or what we also call your nominal rate. That is why the label is INOM. So that's I sub NOM. That's actually I sub NOM, no? But I hope that you can see it sa inyong books, pero basta ka nang add I, tas gamay din diri nga NOM. Okay? So that's INOM. And then or your nominal rate. How do you compute ba for your interest rate per compounding period? So when we say compounding period, you divide 1 year by the number of periods nga mag-compute ka. So compounding period, no, when we say monthly, or sugot sa annual, when we say annual, so 1 compounding period per year. When we say semi-annual, every 6 months. So that's 12 months in a year divided by 6. Okay? So that's, kay, diba, every 6 months man. Every 6 months. So how many months in a year? 12. And then, how many months in every 6 months? Malamang, 6. So that's 12 over 6. So that will give you 2. So for annual, no, how many months are there in a year? 12. So pila ka months ka ay hapon ay ka mag-calculate og interest? 12 po. So 12 divided by 12. When we say quarterly, every 3 months. So your compounding period would be 12 divided by 3 months. So you'll have 4 compounding periods, or meaning na kay in 1 year na kay upat katulo ka bulan. Okay, so 4 times 3, 12. So ano lang good. So again, 12 divided by 3. So you have 4 compounding periods. So when we say compounding period, pila ka bulan or pila ka days ang mulabay as your murag ang isa ka tuig ba imong tungaon siya. So if we represent it via timeline, no, let me just copy a timeline here. Timeline. Okay. So for example, no, let me just okay. Okay. Sige. So dapat mag-insert tagline. Mhm. Shape formats. The weights. Make it okay. So for wait. Okay. And then let's copy this. Okay. So assume that this line represents 1 year, no? Assume that this line represents 1 year. So for annual, you only have one period. For let me just paste it sa tanan. Okay. Again, for annual, you only have wait, okay. For annual, you only have one period. But for semi-annual, again, remember, in 12 months, there are two 6 months. So meaning you have two periods. And in quarterly, in 12 months, there are four 3 months. So meaning, upat ka buok ang imuhang period. Hmm. Kaya lang i-mind kung dili sila equally distributed. Okay? So in a year, you have four kat tulo ka upat ka buok na tulo ka bulan. And in monthly, no, so monthly you have 12 months man, so in a year. And then okay, you have 12 months in a year. Tas pila ka bulan ang isa ka bulan, malamang isa. So meaning, kung monthly ang imuhang compounding period na akay 12 ka bulan in a year. When it comes to weekly, how many days are there in a year? So that's 365. And how many days are there in a week? That's 7. So 52.14. But in accounting, no, or in mathematics, then we divide a year by 52 weeks. So ako na lang, di na lang nako ni kuan ng uban nga timelines guys sa kay murag dili siya doable sa ingani ka mo ang identifying the figures na ay the number of periods in a year represented by a timeline. So what I'm showing you here is the timeline. So it shows you parang it translate a time period through a line. So that's why we call that the timeline. Okay, so again, for monthly there are 12 months. At so in a year, there are 12 months. So divided by 1 month, kay monthly months, there are 12 compounding periods. For weekly, 365 days divided by 7, that will give you 52.14. So that means you have 52 weeks in a year. So, kasi mga to na mga, sir, ayun ka sir, basta dapat periods kay round up. No, in this case, no, kaya this is just kanang, tawag ani, this is, the kanang mura bitog the route that mathematicians and accounting professionals have chosen. So in a year, there are 52 weeks. Just remember that one. So when you say bi-weekly, since there are 52 weeks man in a year, so when you say bi-weekly, guys, it's every 2 months. Okay? So bi-weekly is every 2 months. Bi-weekly is every 2 weeks. So again, there are 52 weeks in a year, and how many weeks are counted before ka mag-calculate sa imong interest? 2 weeks. So 52 divided by 2, you have 26 bi-weekly periods in a year. For bi-monthly, so again, you have 12 months, and bi-monthly means every 2 months. Okay, so when you say um, every 2 months, so pila ka months ang i-count before ka mag-calculate ng interest? 2 months. So 12 divided by 2, you have 6 bi-monthly compound interest periods or compounding periods in a year. Tapos kung mayroon ka og daily, so since daily man siya, and then by application of Banker's rule, the actual number of days in a year is 365 divided by, malamang 365 divided by 1 per year, no? One kind of a daily man, so 165 days divided by 1 day. So the 365 compounding periods, or 366 in case of a leap year. Okay, so when it comes to the term of the loan, you already know that. So the term of the loan is expressed as in years. So that's how you kanang tawagan no. Same gyapon sa katong PRT nato sa simple interest. So the T is translated as the term of the loan. However, no, your T should be expressed in N, which is the number of compounding periods in total. So when you say naman so the number of compounding periods is discussed na, no? So pila ka buok in a year. So M represents pila ka compounding period in a year, while N here represents the number of compounding periods present in the entire term of the loan. So for example, sige, let's just take into consideration here. So for example, what is this? Okay, so I think wala na siya. Okay, so examples of computing for INOM, examples for computing for your interest rate per period. So interest rate per period again is your rate of interest per compounding period nimo. So that's the nominal rate over your compounding period. So compounding periods katong 12, kay kani sila 1, 2, 4, 12, 52, 26, 6, 365. So for example, you have an INOM of 12% if the compounding period is annual. So that means you simply have 12. Sakto dito kung ibuhat. Sakto dito una. Oh my God. Okay. So for example, the INOM here is 12%. So by dividing your INOM with the compounding period per year, so you'll get your INOM. So that's 0.12 divided by 1. And then, 0.12 divided by 1. Sorry. You have to express it in decimal. Decimal. Currency. Counting. How do you sige, percentage na lang. Okay. So 12% ang imuhang I. So this means INOM is equal to I when it is annual. But once it's less than annual, nalanin kay difference dayon. So for example, kung what do you call this one? Kung siya may annual na siya, So kung siya may annual na siya, it will become 6% or 12% divided by 2. Kung mahimo na siyang quarterly, it will be, your interest rate per compounding period would be 3% or 12% divided by 4. And then, kung mahimo siyang monthly, it will now become 1% per compounding period or 12% divided by 12. That's your compound interest per compounding period once monthly. So if you copy it all, so these are the sorry, wala ba din siya nakakuan. So 360 12% over 365. Assuming a 365 kaya sa dili leap year. Okay. So in expressing no your in expressing your I no based on compounding periods, assuming an app kay 12 na item, these are your interest rate per compounding period based on this compounding periods per year. Okay? So for your time naman no, what is this? So, for your time naman, assuming, di ba, for your time, for your N, di ba, N is equal to the term of the loan, multiply that by your compounding periods per year. So, assuming that we have a 5-year loan. So, your total N then will be 5 times 1 kung annual. So, you have 5 total compounding periods for the entire term of the loan. Kung semi-annual, you have 10 compounding periods. Diba? Kaya in 5 years, 5 years times 12, that's, so pwede po siya, 5 times 12 divided by 6. So, 5 years, 12 months every year, divided by every 6 months, you'll still get 10. Okay? So, continuing the example, no? So, kung, dapat din siya 365. Okay. So from annual to annual, semi-annual, quarterly. So this means guys no nga the more compounding periods they're in 1 year, the more compounding periods you'll have for the entire term of the loan. Okay? So what is this? I know. Okay. So this is just an example, no? So the example given here is your your normal interest rate is 10%. Your term is 2. Your number of compounding periods is 2. So your I now here, so your interest rate per compounding period would be 10% divided by 2. You'll have 5%. While your total number of compounding periods for the entire term of the loan would be 2 years times 2 compounding period per year, you will have 4 total of compounding periods for the term of the loan. So, in giving you naman an idea of how the present value becomes the future value, so here's parang tabular form of that. So, in year 0, year 1 figure is his future value. But in reference to year 1 to year 2, the year 1 now becomes the present value, while the amount for year 2 becomes the future value, so on and so forth. So how do we interpret that? So your principal here, or your present value here, diba, would be is 100 first. So this is the term of your loan, ha. So let's just translate it into let's just translate it into a verbal form. So the principal is, ay, delete na lang. Dapat delete dito sa pinakataas. Okay. Cancel. So, the principal is, example, the principal is 100 pesos. Delete na lang. An amount of 100 pesos is invested in in a bank, or di na lang, an amount of 100 pesos is lent to you lent to you with maturity value, with maturity date 2 years from now. 2 years from now. From now. For 12%, a 10% die, 10% compounded, compounded semi-annually. Annually. Okay. So if the statement is like this now, so you have your principal at 100, your INOM is 10%, your term is 2 years, and your M or compounding periods per year is 2. So you can now solve for your I at 5% and your N at 4 as what I have discussed kanina. So here, principal. So on year 1, the what do you call this one? On Oh yeah. So on year one, it's just on year zero, it's just the principal of 100, while on so in year one, no, pag abot na yun sa at the end of year one, what you will have now is the principal plus interest. So your I here is kanang representative of what do you call this one? Our I is equal to PRT. Okay? Or your interest here is represented by RT. Okay? So interest, so here your principal is 100 and then your interest in this period would be 100 times our rate and time, so that's not this is not year one dahil this is after 6 months kay per compounding period minute, so 100 times 0.05. Yeah, so since ano din siya, this is calculated, no, this is if you in this illustration, no, P is principal, P is principal. I here now represents your interest per compounding period. Per compounding period. Compounding period. And then M would be your not M, but like T. Okay, in reference to PRT nga formula, no, R there is just simply replaced by our small I here. So T is equal to the compounding period. One compounding period. One compounding period. So since diba, for in computing for the interest for one compounding period, the formula would be principal times the interest per compounding period and T, small letter t, which is your one compounding period. So since T is always constant no 1, we can remove P. Okay, diba? P times I times 1 will still be equal to P times I. So, or simply P times I. So, P times I. So, if you can, so, tawag nito, PI here, guys, now represents now your interest. So, if you can see here, that's P, our principal of 100, and our I of 0.05. So, that's 100 times 0.5, you have 5 pesos. So, your future value now is at 105 pesos. So that's P times PI, which is or P plus I, P times PI. P plus PI or P plus the interest for that compounding period. So if you simplify that, no? If you simplify that P plus PI, you will have common of P, igawas si P times 1 plus I. Kaya diba, if makagawas na si P, no, so P divided by P, that's 1, plus Pi over P, you'll have I. So, P plus Pi can also be interpreted as P times 1 plus Pi raised to the power of 1. But in mathematics, if 1 lang ang iyang exponent, then we can ignore it. For the second naman na for the second nga compounding period, so di ba after 6 months naman this one. So after 12 months, you already have had two compounding periods. Now, for the second compounding period, again, your basis na dayo, no? Your basis for calculating na the interest is not just the principal, but already the P plus Pi or the P times 1 plus I. So that would be P times 1 plus I, which is the 105, and then plus the 105 times I. So, narinig siya ang representation niya, no? So, 100 times 1 plus 0.05 times raised to the power of 1. And then, so, your interest na dayon for this period would again be, the interest is 105 times our I of 0.05. So, your compound amount should be at 105 times 105 times 0.05, or simply, let's just move this to the right, or simply, no, so you can 100 plus 5, 105 plus 5.25, so that's 110.25. And then what else? I hope I'm not moving it too much. Okay, so on the third naman na compounding period, so third compounding period, that would give you 12 months plus 6 months, that's 18 months. So 18 months divided by 6, that's 3 compounding periods kung nilabay. So your interest na for this period will be based on 1.10.25. You multiply that by our interest rate per compounding period of 0.05. Your interest for the period is 5.5125. So your compound amount should be at 110 plus the interest, or 115.7625. You can also solve that by using this formula. 110.25 from the previous plus the 110 with interest. So, if we express those two compounding periods kanila by no in formula, so again, the 105 plus 105 times 0.05, so meaning common diba si P times 1 plus I, right? So, kung common si P times 1 plus I, so times, you divide P plus, you divide this expression by this expression, you'll have 1 plus, okay. You have this, so again, you divide P times 1 plus I by P times 1 plus I, you'll have 1. And then, if you divide this whole expression by this expression, you'll have a remaining value of I. So, in mathematics, no, so nanaki 1 plus I, in mathematics, kung multiplied lang siya ng mga variables, you can combine like terms and add their exponents. So, the exponent of 1 plus I is 1, and the exponent of 1 plus I is 1. So, 1 plus I will be 2. So, the new formula will then become P times 1 plus I raised to the power of 2. So, meaning there are two compounding pairs na nga nilabay. For the third one naman, no, so, what is expressed here is that the 110.25, you add that with 100.25 times 0.05, or expressed by this figure. So, di ba kasi 110.25 is solved using this formula. So, P times 1 plus I raised to the power of 2 plus P times 1 plus I raised to the power of 2 times I is your new compound amount. So, common si P times 1 plus I over I raised to the power of 2 o si P times 1 plus I raised to the power of 2. So, kung addition naman or subtraction, guys, no, ang expressions, you cannot simply just add their exponents. The addition of exponents will only be possible if multiplication or division ang imuhang expressions. But if your expressions are in addition form or subtraction form, you can only combine like totally similar nga mga variables. So in this case, a totally similar variables would be the entire p times 1 plus I raised to the power of 2 nga kanang expression. So we ato na siyang ipagawas, no, and then we divide the entire left side of the addition na kanang operation with this one. You'll get 1, and then we divide this expression with this one, so you'll get I. Kaya makancel na siya, makancel na siya, sabihin mo siyang 1, makancel na siya, mabilin si I, so 1 plus I. Now, since multiplication naman siya, no, the base of kanang naay common expression diri nga 1 plus I. So, since common si 1 plus I nga na exponent of 2, and napod si 1 plus I nga na exponent nga 1, so 2 plus 1 will give you 3. So, this will also be true on the fourth part, no? So, di ba? In the fourth part, your interest here would be this one times 0.05. So, your maturity value or your future value will then be the katong iyahan ng carrying amount or iyahan ng kanang present value in the prior period, i-add nimo ang inang interest for this current period. So you'll have 121,555.06. So meaning that's diba si 115.7625 was solved using this expression. So this is 115.76 plus 115.76 times I. Okay? So, common na po dayon si this one. And then, if we divide the first expression with this expression, you'll have 1 times dayon siya. And then, if you divide this expression with this one, makancel out ni siya, and what will remain is I. So, same like this, no? Common si Peso, retain si P. Si 1 plus I, common siya. Tapos multiplication, so we can add the exponents nga 3 plus 1, you'll have 4. So, meaning, you can calculate using compound interest formula, no? You can calculate it manually, which is what we did here. Kaninga column, this is the manual calculations. And then, or also this one, this is the manual calculation. And I think also this one is also the manual calculation. While this one is using the compound interest formula, which is using these expressions. So at period 1, you'll have that. At period 2, so the principal times 1 plus 0.05, which is your I, raised to the power of 2, meaning the number of compounding periods nga nilabay. So 2, kaya diba after 2 periods man. This one is 1 principal times 1 plus I raised to the power of the number of compounding periods nga nilabay. 3 periods or 18 months. And then pinaka-last, no? Principal times 1 plus I, or your compounding interest per compounding period raised to the power of 4, or 24 months or 2 years nga nilabay na, which has 24 months divided by 6 for compounding periods. So, that will give you this parang formula na kanang the very expounded formula of the compounding interest formula, no, is the future amount or the future value. A is the future value here. Future value is equal to the present value or your principal. You multiply that by 1 plus your I, diba, is expressed as I nom over M, and then you raise that to M times T, or the number of compounding periods per year times the number of years in the term of the loan. So again, I nom over N can also be expressed as I, and to the power of M times T can also be expressed as N. So this is the parang um, shortened representation of the compounding interest formula. A is equal to P times 1 plus I raised to the power of N. So, saan siya? K50. Mm-hmm. I don't sense the relevance of this one. Okay, so this is just in computing the effective interest rate formula, which we will be tackling later on. So anyhow, so for example, no, find the compound amount and the compound interest when 10,000 is invested for 3 years and 2 months at 6% compounded semi-annually. So in this example, no, we are already talking about examples of kanang problems with what do you call this one? Example of problems with fractional period of time. So this is the example kung na siya fractional period. So since we have already or sige ano na lang sa before we go with fractional period of time, let's just take an example muna for compounding interest nga buo ang iyahang ano. So 3 years. 3 years. Okay. So find the compound amount and the compound interest when 10,000 is invested for 3 years at 6% compounded semi-annually. So here, no, using this formula na lang, okay, we have to compute for I first. Our I is equal to I nom or the annual rate divided by the compounding periods per year. So, this will give you our inom, diba? Our inom here is 6%. So, 0.06. Now, semi-annually man ang compounding. So, semi-annually, how many semi-annuals are there in 1 year? 2. So, our I here is 3%. So, for our N naman, which is equal to M times T, So, again, how many semi-annuals are there in a year? There are 2. And how many years is the total term of the loan? 3 years. So 3 years. That means your T is 6. So following this formula, no, your compound amount then will be your FV or your A will then be our principal or present value is 10,000. You multiply that by 1 plus our I or our interest rate per component period is 0.03. We raised that to the power of our N, which is M times T. So that's 6. We already solved for that. So you should have one. How much is this? 11,940.52. You can also solve it, no? Without solving for this, you can already solve it in one go. How do you do that? So principal is 10,000, and then you multiply that by 1 plus our this one using this formula I num over M. So our I num over M would be 0.12 over M. Our M is 2, and then we raised that to the power of our M is again 2 and our T is 3. We should arrive at the same answer. What happened here? Ay, nga 12. Hindi siya 12, no? 0.06. 6 malay nga to ang annual rate. Okay, so 11. Okay. So in computing naman guys, you were asked of the compound interest now. Your compound interest then is simply for the compound interest. No, compound interest is simply A minus P or FV minus PV. So here, no, our A or our FV is 11 940 equals 11 940.52 minus 10,000. So that should give you a compound interest of 1940.52. Ay, ala, what happened? You just okay. Okay. So ayun. Now, let's try to explore or try to solve when there is fractional nga time. Fractional wait lang ha. Yeah. Fractional part of compounding periods. Compounding periods. Okay. So, what if no nga the term of the loan does not coincide with the compounding period? So for example, ang ihatag sa imuha is quarterly and then ang term sa loan is 10 months. So kung quarterly na yung 10 months, 'di ba ang whole nga quarterly is only 3 kay di pila. What do you call this one? So for example, sige ha. So for example, compounding period is equal to quarterly, and then term of the loan is 10 months. So if you would solve this, no, that the entire term of the loan expressed in quarters, no, is equals 10 over 3, or this is also expressed as 3 quarters and 1 month. So how do you solve na dayon for the compound interest and the maturity value if the term of the loan does not coincide with the compounding periods? So for example, no, find the compound amount and the compound interest when 10,000 is invested for 3 years and 2 months at 6% compounded semi-annually. So okay. What is this? Char. Okay. So this is na dayon the kanang exploring of the formula. Okay. So what is this? Wait lang guys. 2/3. 2/3. Okay. So it actually computed for nga wala niya napakitag tarong. Okay. So let's just do it this way. So principal here is how much, or our PV. P or PV is equal to how much is it? 10,000. Our INOM is equal to 6%. And then our term of the loan is 3 years and 2 months. 2 months. So with our INOM, no, our napalinta, ang M din nato. Our M is semi-annual, so that's 2. 2. Dili, dapat pwede. So 2. Okay, 2. So with this given, no, we can now solve for our INOM. Our INOM is 6% divided by our M, while our INOM, this is our I. And for our N, no, our N is 3 years and 2 months. So that's how many months? Equals 3 times 12 months plus 2 months, right? Wait lang. 3 years times 12 months per year plus 2 months nga extra divided by 6 months per semi-annual. That should give you 6 periods and change. So this is simply, this can also be expressed as 6 semi-annuals annuals and 2 months. Sir, how did you determine it's 6 semi-annuals and 2 months? So you deduct from the fractional the whole number available, which is in this case is 6. So that's your whole number, or that's your whole compounding periods. So you have 0.333, and then without rounding off this number, no, you multiply this with the number of months per compounding period. So that's 6 times the remaining fractional part. So that's 2. So meaning that should give you that the total n is 6 semi-annuals and 2 months. So to solve for problems with fractional compounding periods, what you should compute first is the compounding, that is the compound amount A, or the future value, um, using the uh, using the whole na compounding period. So in this case, no, our our A, or future value by the third year, or after 6 compounding periods, or 6 semi-annuals, is principal is 10,000. You multiply that by 1 plus our I is 0.03, and then we raise that with the whole into nga compounding period. So the whole compounding period is 6. That should give you 11,940.52. Next is, so first, no, I'm going to do a little bit. First, calculate compound amount using whole compounding periods, and then the next step would be calculate the interest of the amount you have calculated in step 1 using simple interest with what do you call this one, using simple interest with the remaining fractional period. So our remaining fractional period here is 2 months, guys, diba? So ingon siya is we get what we have calculated from the first step and compute the simple interest of that. So kung simple interest, diba, what we do for our simple interest, we use the annual rate, not the not the interest rate per compounding period, but the annual rate, which is in this case is 0.06. And then you multiply that by the remaining periods, in this case 2 months. So 2 months, and then pitong over 6 ba or 12, simple interest man ni siya. So in simple interest, diba, we express the rate and the time per year. So 2 over 12. So the interest for the remaining 2 months would be 119.41. So last step is to add the amounts in step 1 and 2. Step 1 and 2. So if you add the amounts in step 1 and 2, you will then get, this is your future value, or compound amount, or A. Okay, so there is actually a shortcut for this one. So this is the shortcut. So how did we arrive with this shortcut, no? So, di ba, what was what do you call this one? Okay. So what we did here, diba, is what do you call this one? We calculated first the P times, so same gyapon sa kato bitaw at same bitaw here guys, no? So the entire expression, the entire makulapit, where am I? The entire expression here is A is equal to the principal, um, which we multiply it by 1 plus I raised to the power of whole compounding periods, and then we multiply this by um and then what we got from this figure is we multiplied this one by the um inom, right? We multiply this by a little bit, yeah, this one, the entire thing, we multiplied it by inom, and the fractional time. So if we simplify this one, no, so what will happen here would be common we see P until the whole compounding period, so we ato siyang ipagawas, and then mahitabo dayon would be times, okay, times, if we divide this expression by this expression, we'll get 1. Am I right? Okay. And then if we so copy the addition sign, and then if we divide this expression by this expression, we will get this 1. Ang mabilin is would be inom times interest times fractional time. Kani siya nga part ang mabilin. This one will be cancelled out. So you can solve it using this one. So let's see if we will get the same answer. So principal, that's our principal here. How much was that? Is 10,000. 10,000. You multiply that by 1 plus our I here is 3%. We raise to the whole number of periods, that's 6. And then we multiply the entire expression by 1 plus our inom here is 6%, so 0.06 times the fractional time of 2 over 12. So we use 12 because, again, for this part, we use simple interest formula. So we should still get the same amount. Okay. So the reason why, no, okay. And then, summation. And then, what's next? We can also, kanang since I here is expressed as inom over m, we can also, what do you call this one? Solve this without transforming inom to I and t to what do you call this? N. So how do we do that? So in this case, that's principal is 10,000. You multiply that by 1 plus our inom would be 0.06 over our m is 2. And then we raise that to the power of m, which is 2. You multiply that by the whole number of t. So 3 years and 2 months. The whole number there is the 3 years. So 3, and then we multiply that by 1 plus our inom is 0.06. The remaining period here is 2 over 12. We should still get the same value. And then, so, sir, what if lugar, sir, semi-annual man siya? So, sir, ang term is 3 3 years and 7 months. So, pila, unsa man imong whole number dito, sir? That would be the 3.5. 'Di ba? Because, or 3.5 means 3 years and 6 months. Because, with your 3.7, your fractional is not the 7 months. Your fractional is the 1 month only. Because in your 7 months, you can still get one whole number compounding period. So, in 3 years and 7 months, tapos semi-annual, your whole number would be, so that's, so for example, no, let's just put it here na lang. Additional example. So, what if, ano siya? So, what if 3 years and 7 months and then semi-annual? Your whole number of compounding periods here would be 3 years times 12 plus 7. And then we divide this by 6 months. Okay, 6 months per semi-annual, that's 7. So meaning that's 7 compounding periods. And then we deduct 7 minus, we deduct the whole number. And then we multiply this by the number of months per compounding period, which is 6 times this one. So our term is 7 semi-annuals and 1 month. Okay. So, pero guys, I'm just showing you different ways wherein you can solve the problem. You can go with the shortcut, which I have shown here, these two. But if this is too complicated for you, you can stick with this method. Okay, because this is the simplest one. Okay. So, now let's go to manipulation of the compound interest formula. Compound interest formula. Let me just check if I'm still on the fractional part. Okay, so manipulation na ta. So, in this expression, no, A equals P times 1 plus I raised to the power of N. Diba, A is the dependent variable and our independent variables are our principal, our I, and our N. So when we say independent variables, those are the variables that are given. Those are the given variables. Pero what if given sa compound amount, which is si A or si future value, but si present value or si present value or si principal ang delay, ang unknown. Okay, so di ba in this formula, A equals P times 1 plus I raised to the power of N, we can just simply, okay. We can just simply kanang transfer the 1 plus I raised to the power of N to the other side. So we divide the entire expression with 1 plus I raised to the power of N. So makancel out the si 1 plus I raised to the power of N and mabilin si P. And what will happen to the other side is that gawin mo siyang A is equal to A divided by 1 plus I raised to the power of N. Okay? So again, ang multiplication sa PCAS, pag mutabok sa PCAS ng equal sign, mahimo siyang division. Now, the unique characteristic of exponential nga mga expressions, no? If naka-positive exponents sa denominator, you can transfer that back to the numerator simply by negating the exponent. Okay, so in this case, the P is equal to A over 1 plus I raised to the power of N can be expressed as P is equal to A, or present value is equal to future value, multiplied by the 1 plus I raised to the power of negative N. Again, we can transfer from the denominator towards the numerator an expression with exponent simply by negating. So, from positive N, ay mo siyang negative N. For I naman, no, so, si I man ang unknown, guys, no? So, first, what we can do here is transfer the whole expression, reverse the whole expression para si I from para si I from the right side, mabalance sa left side. So that's what we did here sa second part. We reversed the A is equal to P times 1 plus I raised to the power of N as P times 1 plus I raised to the power of N is equal to A. Now, since we want I to stay in the left side, we have to remove P. We can remove P by simply dividing the whole expression by P. So, makwala si P sa P na side, mabalhin at a division or denominator on the other side. That's why for the next part, we have 1 plus I raised to the power of N is equal to A over P. Now, in removing or in eliminating exponents, no? Kaya diba, in the other side, ang nabilin is 1 plus I raised to the power of n. Before we can go to I, we first have to remove the exponent. So, and to not remove but transfer. To transfer the exponent to the other side, we simply have to kanabitang express it, enclose the whole expression by a radical sign, and then the radical value would then be the n. So mahimo din siyang the nth root. N here will represent the number of compounding periods per the total term of the loan. So the nth root of A over P. And then so with that, na remove the nimo si n, and then you are left with 1 plus I. So 1 plus I is equal to the nth root of A over P. Now, we can now simply then transfer dayon si 1 here to the other side. So when we transfer addition from left side to the right side, we simply negate it. So may mo siyang 1 minus 1. So the minus 1 is not inside the radical sign, but it's outside the radical sign. Okay? So you simply have to you first have to calculate the nth root of A over P, and then from that answer you deduct 1. You will have I dayon. Okay, so your I here is again your compounding period. Your compounding period. Your I here is your interest per compounding period. Okay, your interest per compounding period. Now, let's put it into action. No? So, for example, based sa kanisya, na dili ta diri sa fractional na part, dito to sa first na part. This one. Copy. Okay, so for example here, no, this is the given. And then we already know na the compound amount is this one. To the bit. Where am I? Okay. Hindi man mo. Okay. Alt HBB. So this is our A na. So for example, the unknown is P. Kung si P ang in question, if we apply the formula, itong question mark nire. So this is adiliday. If si P ang in question, no, so our maturity is, again, it's A over, or A times 1 plus I raised to the power of N. So our, sa primero sa ta, katong divide lang sa ta, maturity value, you divide that by 1 plus our I is 0.03, raised to the power of what? That's what? Dili man mo kung gikopya. This is very wrong. Kajut lang. Okay, 2 months money. This is what they want. Yeah, this is what they want. Okay. Okay. Sige. So, ayun. With this given, so our I norm again is this one. And then we divide that by 1 plus our I is 0.03. And then we raise that with our N, which is our number of compounding periods, which is total of 6. So that will give you our principal of 10,000. So for example, our I ang unknown. If the I is unknown, again, the formula is simply so the nth root ko no of I'm not sure if I can do it here. It lang has 6 and then the radical sign. Where is it? I'm not. Okay. Okay. So for Excel, guys, no, we can express the radical sign by expressing n into parang 1 over n. So here we can solve it by a here is our a is 11 and 40. We divide that by our 10,000 and then we raise that to exponent nga 1 over n, so that's 1 over 6. And then from that whole expression, we deduct 1. Okay, so you will get an I of 0.03. And then our I norm here would be 0.03 times our M of 2. So you will get 6% annual rate, which is kanang same yapon sa expression. Guys, in your calculators, no, better nga you use the radical sign. But if you're parang if kay more I don't know kung sa calculators ang inyong ginagamit. But for the I'm not sure po if makita. Try na to kung makita ba ninyo ha. Yang now ana sa calculator would probably would be I usually use this, so shift and then I press this button na naay kani siya murag empty kasi ang taas kay murag na empty nga radical sign and that will give me this one. So on the blank side on the kanang sa radical sign kung pila iyahang root kineme, so you write your n, which is in this case it's 6. Baliktad siya, no? Pero yeah, that's 6. And then our A over P, so that's 11,940.52 over 10,000 or dili na lang katong mas kyapa. 11,940.52 over 10,000. So it will then become like this. So that's 11,940.52. Sorry for my calculator, over 1,000. And then you did not kanang enter -1 inside. So -1. When I say enter -1 inside, imong 1, this one is still inside the radical sign. What you should do is delete that, and then from this side you press this one para magawas na yun siya, and then -1. You can do that. So that will give you 3%. 3%. That's 2.99999. So that's 3%. Or to be safe, no? To be safe, solve muna for this expression. And then hit the equal sign. And then from that, you deduct 1. So that will give you 0.029999 or 3%. Okay, so that multiply it by 2, that's 6%. Okay, now for your ano naman, for your n, or what if your ang unknown would be the unknown would be your number of compounding periods in what do you call this one? The number of compounding periods in number of compounding periods sa imuhang term of the loan. So given so again no, same sa ato ang gibuhat here. Okay, so first is we have to reverse the entire formula. So that's what we did here. Sa atong p plus 1 plus I equals a, and then so same no, remove p muna before we can concentrate on the 1 plus I raised to the power of n function. So that will give us this expression. And then this one is medyo tricky na dayon siya, no? So, di ba siya tricky and whatever, pero once manggod nga ang exponent nimo kay exponent ba ni si n, once si exponent ang imuhang unknown, then in order to in order to transfer the base of that exponent, this one, in order to transfer this, we have to use logarithm. So, mabiling si n, and then it will be equal to, how did I do this? Okay. So, n is equal to log of the base, katong base sa katong exponent, and then, base ba na? Log of dili, log of the katong a over p to the base of 1 plus I. So, muna siya ang base. So, kung unsa ang base, imong n, mo put yung base imong logarithm. So, the log of a over p to the base of 1 plus I. So, it can also be expressed as is equal to log of ap over log of 1 plus I. So, I'm not sure if your calculators have this, no? But this function, this one, the log blank base, that's log of blank to the base of blank. So, you press that one, and this will give you this one. So, na log tas blank ang base, blank po tong of. So, sa base, you enclosed there the 1 plus I, so 1.03. I don't know how to do it using Excel, no? But, I'm just gonna show you how you do it in calculator. So, that's 1.03 or 1 plus na lang. So, our base is a log of 1 plus 0.03, and then, sa upper portion, it's a over p, no? So, a over p, that's 11,940, 0.52 over 10,000. So, this is the a over p expression. That's 11,940.52 over 10,000. So, this should give you 5.99999, or that's 6 months. Cases. 6 months. 6 periods. So, our 6 periods or 6 semi-annuals. And your T here would be 6 semi-annuals divided by the semi-annuals per year. That will give you 3 years. Okay. So, ayun. Another way, again, no? Another way, we use the fraction form. So, because usually calculators only have the log option eh. Asa man tong log dire? Where's my log? This one. Log. So, log of a over p. So, a over p, that's 11,940.52 divided by 10,000. And then, same. So, that's the log of 11 divided by 10,000. And then, on the denominator, you enter the log of 1 plus I. So, in the denominator, the log of 1 plus I. That should still give you 6. Okay, 5.9999. So, sa uban calculators, kung wala sila yung fraction form, so we can also do this. Log of 11,940.52 over 10,000 divided by 10,000. So, that's what I did. 11,940 times 10,000. You can have a shortcut of 10,000. This is the shortcut for 10,000 sa inyuhang calculators, no? How did I write that? So that's just simply 10 10, and then I press this, that times 10. So how many zeros kung i-add? So that's 3. So that's the shortcut for 10,000. And then the whole expression, you divide that by log of 1 plus I. This one. And then that should still give you 5.99999. Okay, so that's on how on manipulating the compound interest formula. Last would be, ali pa rin siya last, or last two. Okay, so next would be to calculate, no? Calculate the effective interest rate. So, um, when it comes to effective interest rate, when the compounding period is annual, effective interest rate and nominal interest rate are just equal. Okay, so effective interest rate is equal to coupon rate or nominal interest rate. However, if the compounding period is less than 1 year, so like semi-annual, quarterly, monthly, daily, your effective interest rate will be more than your nominal rate. So, um, you okay. What is this? Okay, so anyhow, um, the diba your assume guys na nga there is one there is one year lang na 1 year lang na how do you call this one? 1 year lang a term. So 1 year lang a term. So in your compound amount formula for 1 year would be A is equal to P times 1 plus I norm over M raised to the power of M times 1. Or simply this would be P times 1 plus I num over M raised to the power of um raised to the power of M. Okay. Now, the effective interest rate somehow gives you the same maturity value using an interest rate na 1 year. So, um, so in an effective interest rate, so A is equal to P times 1. Mura bitog expressed in annual magunin sa effective interest rate. So, iyang M would be 1. So, 1 plus I num over M. So, given this expression, no, same here. But for effective interest rate, the I num here, murag it's like the rate of interest wherein kanang M here, it becomes like annual. So but this no matter what the M here sa imuhang original na formula, this will still give you the same compound amount as if annual ang imuhang compounding period. So kung annual imong compounding period, inom would be 1, right? So 1. Raised, inom would be 1. M would be 1 and M would be 1. So the remaining here would be dili siya inom, IF na siya. IF. Okay, effective interest man. So again, this is the rate of interest that will give you the same nga result with this formula as if annual ang imuhang rate. Bahala pag quarterly ang imuhang period. So for example, here no, I literally to sa example. So meaning, sige, example na lang sa day. Okay, so example, this one. Sige, this one. Do it. Example, this one. Okay, so example, this one. So our assuming this is just 1 year. 1 year. So your compound amount here would be 10,000, you multiply that by 1 plus our item is 0.06 semi-annual over 2 raised to the power of m, which is 2. Our compound amount is 10609. Now, we don't know no kung how what specific interest will give the same result. So, but we know that this is we know that this if, though this if is unknown, we know that this if will give the same um, kanang compound amount as this one. So meaning, if we use this as reference and we transform this formula nga si if ang unknown. So if here is equal to a over is equal to a over p, and then we deduct from it -1. So here our if would be, our effective interest rate would be this one, over 10,000, and then we deduct 1 from that. Or let's check if sakto ba no. So let's check here. 10,000 principal, let's check if we will have the same amount. 10,000, we multiply that with 1 plus this one. Ay, wala pa di ko naka-equals. 1 plus this one. Tama ba? Okay. So, 10,609. So, since equal sila value nga mahatag sa imuha, no? We can then equate these two equations. So, this means that copy. This one is equal to where am I? This one is equal to this one. And since P is already here, no, since P is present in both sides, we can eliminate P. So, mahimo na yun siyang, sorry. Himo rin siyang ana, right? So, in order to solve for effective interest rate, meaning the formula here is IF is equal to this expression and then we deduct 1 from it. So, here, di ba, we computed the 0.0609 based kay nakakompute na taong maturity value. So, what if budirekta og calculate sa effective interest rate? So, here daw the formula would be 1 plus, our I-known here is 0.06, right? Our M is semi-annual, so 2. We raised that to the power of 2, right? And we deduct from everything 1. And it will still give us 0.0609. So this means that in computing for the effective interest rate in compound interest formulas, your formula should be this one. Okay. I'm not sure about this one. Okay. Wait lang ha. Varying interest rates. Okay. So this is the varying interest rates. Okay, so yeah. Next is we discuss varying interest rates, no? Varying interest rates. So for varying interest rates, assume a problem wherein the principal is 10,000. So principal is 10,000. Now on the first On the first, what do you call this? In the first 4 years, the rate or the nominal rate is 12%, while the compounding period is semi-annual. So our I here is equal to, that's 0.12 over 2. And our N here would be, N here would be what, man? Our N here would be um 4 years, no? So 4 times our M of 2 years, so that's 8 compounding periods. Now on the second part, on the from year 5 to 7, so that's 5, 6, 7. So that's 3 years, no? Okay, 0 to 4, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then on the starting year 5, so 5, 6, 7. So our I here would be 10%. I sorry, 0.10, and then with the quarterly man, so 4. When 25 itong I, our N would be, again, 3 years multiplied by 4. So, meaning, ang loan ba, for example, nagpautang ka, 10,000, for the first 4 years, the interest is compounded semi-annually at 12%. Starting year 5 to 7, na ay new na lahi na pod nga interest rate ang mo apply, so that that will give you kung i-translate ni siya i-translate ni siya into a problem. So if the principal of 10,000 and the interest rate is 12% compounded semi-annually, for the first 4 years, and 10% quarterly for the next 3 years. Why 3 years? What is the compound amount? Compound amount at the end of 7 years. Okay, so principal, year 0 to 4, 5 to 7. So, this is the shortcut ng formula. So, I'm gonna kanang guide you through muna on how we calculate things. So, first is, we have to calculate muna the future value or the compound amount for the first 4 years. So, future value at for the first 4 years. So the future value for the first 4 years would be 10,000 na principal, and then 10,000 na principal, you multiply there 1 plus our I is 0.06, and then we raise what? 8 compounding periods. So 8. Our our compound amount then, or our future value then, would be 15,938.48. For the next 3 years naman, our FV for the first 4 years will be our PV for the next 3 years. So this is our PV for the next 3 years. So muna siya guys nga nagtagbo na nga ang present value sa ang future value sa nahimo ng present value. So using the PV for the next 3 years, our FV for the next 3 years would be this amount multiplied by 1 plus the new set of terms. So I is 0.025. You raise that to the power of 12. So this is now our compound amount at the end of 7 years. So this is our compound amount, our future value at the end of 7 years. 7 years. Now, is there are so if we express this in formulas, guys, no? So this is it. This is the formula. P times 1 plus inom. Inoms ni A. Inom ni A ni ha. So inom sa first nga expression over ang M or ang katong compounding period sa expression nga A. And then raised to the power of the M sa first expression. In this case, we have 2 times the duration of the first set, which is 4 years. So using this formula, this is principal is 10,000. Multiply that by 1 plus inom na to is 0.12 over M sa first. So that's 2 raised to the power of 2 times 4. Okay, so still that's the same amount as this one. No? And then for the second one, ingon siya nga the formula would be sige. Ingon siya nga the formula would be this one. So PV, just read this one, guys, by downloading downloading the Excel file itself. Kaning kay naputol siya kay nakogi-paste sa next na cell. Anyhow, so ayun. So PV kuno at the end at PV at year 5, and then you multiply that by 1 plus the inom sa second ga term, so that's 10%. Over the M sa next na term, our quarterly, so 4. We raised that to 4. Multiply that by the term na po sa next nga katong change. So that will still give you 2145.48, the compound amount at the end of 7 years. So these are the another approach, no? Without solving for I and N. For both figures. And then from that, we can actually create a expounded na or a compound formula wherein isa lang siya ka-inputan sa calculator. So this is that formula, which is P is equal to IA. A is equal to the principal, and then the 1 plus inom over M raised to the power of M times the T for the first term. You multiply that by the 1 plus inom over M of the second term. So in simple form, no, it can be expressed as this one. By this one. Okay, so principal, which is 10,000, you multiply that by 1 plus our I for the first katong initial, katong first 4 years, that's 0.06, raised to the power of the N for the first, so that's 8, and then you multiply that with 1 plus the I for the next term, 0.025, raised to the power of the N for the next part, so 12. So again, it will give us the same answer. So I'm just giving you guys more options or more avenues to solve it. The longer longer nga version and the shorter nga version. But kung aha mo hiyang, then go with it. Okay? So ayun. So next would be okay. So you don't need to You don't need to learn this. Okay, this is just a complication of this is a shortcut of how to solve for is it how to solve for M? I think. For how to solve for T and for I think how to solve for M yata na siya nga kuan na what do you call this one? No problem. No problem. No formula and I actually made this. Sige, let's explore this na lang. Additional exploring of the compounding interest formula. Okay. So from this one, let's see additional exploration of the compound interest formula. Okay, so A is equal to P times 1 plus I norm. So this is just the katong expounded compounding interest formula. And then, what are we trying to solve here? We're trying to solve here for T, for time. So, kalin lagi siya, if we're trying to solve for time, again, naamantay ka ng much less complicated version of solving for T, which is this one. So, let's ignore this one. Now, yeah. For in solving for M, so the question here is what if the compounding method ang unknown by compounding method, I mean kung annually, semi-annually, what do you call this one? Annually, semi-annually, that else? Annually, semi-annually, quarterly, daily, or monthly ang unknown, we will be using interpolation or high-low method, which is the method of approximation. I will not give you this na lang because this will complicate things. If you want to explore how this was derived, no, just look at it sa tuang Excel file ng formula. But for now, let's just end there for the first installation of your next video discussions. Please keep updated for the next installation, which is Unit 3, wherein we will be talking about the present value. Okay? So with that, thank you so much for your time. And I hope that you have learned something today. Bye!